Okay, you're all taking out share. We're starting from the bottom of Nun Amid base. Okay, you're all taking.
I hear other voices here.
In the background?
Yeah.
Is it disturbing you? I could change the settings to be Mavatal.
Well, it just keeps on coming in and out.
Okay, so give me a second. Okay, how's it now? Better?
Okay. For the moment, it's okay.
Okay, yeah, I gave it a very high level of screening out any background noise.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Okay, so it's up to head of the mark. Hamtis of basic choices.
Yeah.
Honorable. Machat shenimtzes b'oivi basic choices. Mitzarechot. On the inside only, you saw a nail stuck into the different compartments of the basic choices. Kshera, it will be kosher. But if it punctures to the outside of the stomach, then it's treif. What if nimtza aleh kairat? What if there's a nail that didn't puncture through, but there's dam on the nail? So then you know for sure, b'yadua, you know for sure, and we're going to turn now on to Nun Aleph Amar Aleph. B'yadua shalafnei shchita. It's a sign that this happened before the shchita. So if you found blood on the nail, that you know, let's say the nail punctured the outside, the nail punctured to the outside, and you see blood on the nail, it's a riot happened before the shchita, and therefore it's going to be a treifa.
Is it coming? Where's the nail coming from?
The nail came from the inside to the outside.
And you only see it on the outside now?
Well, you see them both, because it's halfway on the inside and halfway on the outside. And
there's
dam on the point of the nail that's on the outside.
On the outside, okay.
So that's a riot that this happened before the shchita, because there was blood over there. But lo nimsa dam, if there's no dam at all on the nail, but you do a shala achar shchita, clearly this nail was in the stomach, but it didn't make a hole in the stomach. Only after the animal died, it made a hole in the stomach, and that's why there's no blood there. What about a different story? What happens if you open up the stomach and you see a hole in the stomach, but there's a gel on it, like a scab? Higlet piyamaka. I'm sorry?
You're breaking up.
This probably is because the internet's not good. How about now? I'm using from my phone. Good. I'm using the internet from my phone. So it could be the internet's not so good. Is it good now? Can you hear me now?
Okay. Right now I can hear you.
Okay. So here you have a situation where a butcher went to a live animal dealer, a cattle dealer, and he bought cattle.
It's cutting out.
Cutting out again?
Yeah.
I'm not sure how we should do this, unless what I could do is I could call in. Should I call in on the phone? I could call on the phone, and you could call on the phone, and then we could just do it through the phone. Or we could leave this on, and I'll just call you on the phone. Would that work for you?
What?
I'll call you on your phone.
We can do it on the phone?
Yeah, I'll call you. what I'm going to do is first I'll try to call in. First, I'll try to call in with the audio. Just give me 1 second. 1 second. 1 second.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID, followed by pound. ID, followed by pound. Otherwise, just press. You are in the meeting now. There are 2 participants in the meeting.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Now I'm on the phone. Is it better now?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, if it breaks up after this, that means it's your connection. Because now I'm phoned in. So let's see how it goes.
Okay.
So Zog to Gemara. You have a situation where a butcher went to a cattle dealer and he bought an animal, he shafted it, and when he opened it up, he saw that there was a cut in the stomach, a nail punctured through the stomach, but it was scabbed. It was scabbed. Now the question is, he made the deal, he bought the animal 3 days ago.
Yeah.
And he just now checked it. Now the question is, when he bought it, did it have this mum? And if it did, it's a mekach tos, he gets his money back.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it happened once he took possession of it. So therefore, if there's a hole in the stomach and it's scabbed over,
Okay.
we know this happened 3 days ago. And if at that point he hadn't bought it yet, then he gets his money back because the animal was already a treva before he bought it. However, if the makkah still doesn't have a scab yet, that means it's a fresher wound, then the moiche will tell him, I have your money already. I would never have released a cow to you if you didn't pay me. You want your money back? I'll kinda that this wound happened when you bought it, not when it was by me. Why is this different than any other time you find a hole in the intestines? Who said that there has to be dam? So we're going back to, if you found dam on the nail, we never learned such a zach. We learned that if it's nikru b'nei ma'ayim, the animal's a trefa. Where did you get this thing that there has to be dam there? Zog to Gemara, Hasam leke midi lemisrach. Hachak even the ikam nachat and mita the kodim shchitahu mizrach havasach. If you don't find a hole and you don't find a nail there, then you'll say you have to be conscious the hole was there before the animal died. But if you find a nail there, so you know how it happened, you can check the nail. And in fact, the nail has no dam on it. The conclusion would be is that this nail only punctured the stomach after the animal was already dead, and therefore it would not be a treva, because a treva that happens after the animal's dead is not a problem.
How would it happen? How would it happen?
Sorry?
How would it puncture after
there was a nail in the stomach. There was a nail in the stomach, but it didn't puncture it. And the animal swallowed the nail.
How would it move after the animal's dead?
Because you're moving the stomach around. You cut it open, it moves around, stuff happens. We had even a shaila, if you could use a hole in the lung, maybe came from afterwards.
Right.
So Zog to Gemara, Hakal Kshiva Nikamachat, Isa the Kodim Shchita, who Mr. Chavasach. There would have been blood on it. Rav Shafar Abaye. Rav Shafar told Abaye, Chasimar, this is a very interesting story, and I'm going to need your opinion on it.
Okay.
Chasimar, High Chevra Mirabonam, the Otsami Marova. There's a very choshev Rav, a young Rav that came from Marova. The Omar, and he said, Rav Avira Shemani. My name is Rav Avira. I want to introduce you to this choshev Rav Avira. And you know what he said? He brought with him
Should I call
halacha.
you?
Yomar, I'm sorry. What's that? What's that?
I was breaking up again. Should I call you instead?
Oh, if you're breaking up, then it's not my internet. Then
Okay.
it's probably your internet.
So
So
what should I
what
do?
you could do is you could call in. So you could call. Let me give you the number to call in.
Okay.
I'm going to
Hold
give you
on.
the number to call in. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
The number is 1-778.
Hold on 1 second. I gotta get a pen. Hold on.
Sure.
Okay. What's the number again?
778
Yeah.
907
907. Oh, 1 second. Oh, again. 1778 907.
907
Yeah.
2071.
2071.
Now, when it picks up, it's going to ask you for the meeting ID.
Yeah.
And that's 603-550-7613. How are you doing it?
660
603
660.
550.
Hold on. It's playing games. I got to do it again. Yeah, again, 1778 907
2071.
2071. Okay.
Welcome.
Okay. What is it? 6?
Followed by pound.
Yeah, 6.
603
Yeah, 3.
550
Yeah.
7613.
Yep.
And then pound.
Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound to continue.
Press pound.
The meeting now. There are 3 participants in the meeting.
Okay.
So I'm going to hang up.
Okay, I got it. Okay. Okay, right.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
back in business. So Zok to Gemara. So Abaye said this Choshev Yid Avira came, and he identified himself as a Avira, and he delivered a halach, a fascinating halach. V'yomar, and he said, "Ma'isa u'bolav honai u'bolav nei Rebbe." The following Shiva came to Rebbe. Machat shenimtzas ba'oy bebeis hakosos mitzarech v'torf, and he said it's treif. Now that's very sure. We just learned that it's not treif if it's mitzarech unless it's all the way through. So
Right.
Abaye needed to get more clear what's going on over here. So Shalach Lei, he sent the message to Rabbi Avira, please come to me. He summoned him. Loi Asal Ligabe. Rabbi Avira refused to come to Abaye. Asal Hu Ligabe. So Abaye went to Rabbi Avira's hotel. Havakoya Igra. Rabbi Avira was standing on the terrace on the roof. Amar, he told Rabbi Avira, Nechus Marvanesi. Come down. Come down, I want to speak to you. Loi Nachus. He didn't come down. Salak Hu Ligabe. So Abaye climbed all the way up to the terrace, and they didn't have an elevator. And he told Rabbi Avira, I need to understand the details because what we heard from you doesn't make any sense. That just nikav only on the inside should be a treva. I need to hear exactly what went down over here. He told him, I'll tell you what happened. I am the usher who was in charge of bringing the Talmidim into Rebbe's chambers, the great Rebbe's chambers for the Shurim. I guess they had shifts, not going to come a long time. He was in charge of, he was the Gabba, he was the Rebbe's Gabba. Vava Rav Huna Tzipra, Rabbi Yosy Mada, Yosy Melafan. And Rav Huna and Rabbi Yosy were sitting in front of him. Ubas of Rebbe, and the following Shaiva came to Rebbe, Machat Shenimtzas Ba'oive Beis HaKoisos Mitzarech. And here is the detail that's important. So he was looking at the inside, and he saw a nail there. He turned it out. He turned it inside out. So now he's looking at the outside. And he found dam on the outside of the stomach. V'tarfa, and he said it straight. The Amar, and he said, if it didn't puncture all the way through to the outside of the stomach, how in the world was there blood over there? So from this story, the whole thing was a big nothing burger, because Rebbe never said that if it's only nika from the inside, it's a treifa. Rebbe found the hekatimsa where it was punctured all the way through, and Abaye had to go through all this tircha to find this out, and the whole thing was a waste of time. Amalei Abaye told Rabbi Avira, Tarach Tarya, or those were Gersh or Gersh, Tarach Tarche, Lahu Gavra, you were matriach me. It's enough in the Mishnah. Is going to be a treva, and if there's dam on the outside, it was niful l'chutz. So the whole thing, you made me mishiga for nothing. Now there's two girsayis over here. There's tarach tirche, which means you were matriach me, but the other girs is tarach tarye. The word tarye, we had a couple of blood ago with the guy who slipped in the mikveh and banged his head. And if you remember, Rabbi said this guy was Tarye. The Gemara said, he's a treifa, he's going to die. So he said, no, he just won't be able to have kids. So Tarye, you have to be a chinik for nothing. So what I don't understand is what happened over here. Abaye summoned Rabbi Avira, he wouldn't come, and then he wouldn't come down. I don't chap the mice. And what's the lesson? What was trying to this mice?
Yeah, no.
I don't have an answer. Maybe Rabbi Ephraim has a suggestion. Abaye went, he summoned the guy, he didn't come. He's a guest in Abaye city. He comes to Abaye city, Abaye summons him. But that's like Chavez, that's like me going to Milwaukee, and the Chavez, Rabbi Twersky says he wants to speak to me, and I say, I'm not coming. Then Rabbi Twersky comes to the hotel, he dials up my room, and says, can you come down to the lobby? I said, no, I'm not going to the lobby. Like it's a mud in the.
But he didn't say that. He didn't say I'm not coming. He didn't come. Maybe he was for nominate.
He didn't come.
I hear, but unless he didn't, I was wondering about that. He didn't say. Maybe he didn't say. He said he's not coming. So he went up.
The only thing I can think of is maybe he was in the middle of listening to a shir on Zoom.
Right. Yeah. Or maybe the internet connection wasn't good. He didn't hear him.
We had a case in the Mishnah, if an animal falls off a roof, even if it looks okay, we're choishish that there was risuk evarim, and therefore, unless it could survive for 24 hours, or if it could get up and walk, it's going to be a treifa. Amar Afuna, what happens if he niach behema l'mayla? You left, the animal was on the roof. You bought l'mata l'mata, and when you came home, you found it in the garden. Must have fell off. Ain't choshishin b'shum risuk evarim. We're not worried about risuk evarim. How did it get down? The Gemara is going to say soon, it jumped down. The only time there's risuk evarim is if a behemoth falls down unexpected. But if it jumps, then it could. The Gemara is going to tell us it knows its own strength. It knows what it's able to do, and therefore you don't have to worry. Who Gadia? The Hava Leila Ravina. There was a gdi that Ravina had. The Chaza Ushla Bi Puma. What happened was the gdi was on the roof, and the roof had a skylight in it. And if you look into the skylight, he saw on the floor, on the top floor, under the skylight, there was chushla. There was tvua there. And of course, the animal wants to eat the chushla. What exactly is chushla? Sa'arim kluf, peeled barley. So, of course, the gedi jumped in. He jumped in the window. Zakmar Dogar, the animal jumped, and he fell from the roof to the floor. The question is this called Risuk Ivar? Also, the Kameder of Ashi, Amala Hada Amar of Huna, and Niach Vemala Maila, Ubal Matalamata, and Chayshim Mishum Risuk Ivarim, maybe Mishum the Islam Midi Lemisra. If he's jumping off the side of a roof, maybe he can hold on a little bit to the side of the wall, on his way down, and slow his fall, and that's why the animal, you don't have to be cautious for Risuk. But the high, when a guy jumping into a skylight, there's no walls around. The high less lemidi lemisra. So maybe this should be a treifa. Maybe the reason why it's not a treifa is because the animal knows what type of a jump it's capable of doing, and it looked and it didn't fall. It looked, it was doing, and it was planned, and it jumped on purpose. And you don't have to worry because if the animal knows what he's doing, he won't be injured. So Amalei, Ravuna answered. Ravuna answered. Ravashi answered. Ravashi answered. Bishum the nafsha, the hainami the nafsha, and therefore it won't be a trick. Hey Imrsa the Abaye of Chaviva. There was a goat bear of Chaviva. The Avishadran Karibus Raisa. It seemed to have paralyzed rear legs because it was like dragging its legs behind it. Amr B'Yemar, this is not a treifa. Hai shigruna nokte. Did you ever have a situation where your legs got frozen? If you're sitting in the bathroom sometimes and you get up and your legs are frozen, so or you're sitting in a weird position. So Zokti Gemara, that's what happened to this animal. Its feet fell asleep. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's risuk evarim or that there's an issue with the spinal cord. That's not going to be a problem. Zokti Gemara weiter. Maskav lo Ravina. The Dilma Chut Ashedra Ifsik. Maybe the reason why it's paralyzed is not because of a temporary situation. Maybe the Chut Ashedra was damaged, but Kua, they checked it, Ashkafua Karavina, and they actually found that it did have a severed spinal cord. Nevertheless, Hilchasa Rav Yemar, we would still pass like Rav Yemar that you don't have to check. If they happen to check and they found it was nifsa, but you don't have to check because shegruna shchiach huta shedra lo shchiach. It's much more common for the animal's hind legs to fall asleep than it is for the animal's spinal cord to be severed. The Rashi says the loim is dakina lemivdik shar behemis. If you have such a condition, you don't have to check the spine.
No, with the condition, with the condition, without the condition.
With the condition, if it's dragging its back legs, you could blame it on shagruna, and you don't have to check to see if the spinal cord was severed, because it's not.
Isn't that a raisa?
That's the whole point. It's not a raisa because shagruna is shliach, and chut hashem is lo shliach. So therefore, it's not like a regular raise, because shagruna is shliach. Zok to Gemara weiter. What about Zechar Rav Huna? What if you have two rams that are ramming each other? We're not choishes that they hurt each other. Even though Rashi says they're moaning, they're moaning around and they're groaning. It's merely chamimus. They got fever. They're hurt, but they're definitely not risuk ivar. But if one of them falls to the ground and can't stand, then you would be worried that there's risuk ivar. Amar Rabanashi, Hani Dachri, the Ganvi. If you had some goats that were stolen, so what the robbers do is they'll break into your pen, they'll steal the goat, and they'll throw it over the fence to get it out of the owner's property as quickly as possible. So the question is, they threw it over the fence, will there be a concern of risuk evarim? Zokt Rabanashi ein chosheshin mishum risuk evarim. My timer, ki shadilahu amasnayu shadilahu. When they throw it over, they throw it in such a way where they know it's going to land on its legs and not fall and get crushed. because they're trying to get it to run away. They're trying to capture them. So that they should be able to run ahead of them. But what if, for some reason, these robbers were going to get caught red-handed? They wanted to get rid of the evidence, so they quickly ran and threw the goats back into the pen. They're vadai cheshina, because they're not concerned about protecting these animals. They just got to get them off their hands so they shouldn't get caught by authorities. That's only if they're throwing these animals back because they're about to get caught. But what if they decided to do tshuva, that charota, they stole the animals and they want to return them? They would be doing a good tshuva and they would be returning the animals in such a way where they would not get injured. Amar Yudah Amarav, Hika al Roisha, v'holchala klapis nova, as nova v'holchala klapi roisha. What if you had a long stick and you wanted to hit the animal on its head, and you're hitting it lengthwise? So when you hit the head, the other end of the stick hit the tail. So you basically hit the whole back of the animal. Or you were standing behind the animal and you wanted to hit its tail, but he had a long stick and it hit all the way to the head. The stick hit the whole shedra. You know why? Because the force of the blow was spread across the whole animal's back from beginning till end. That means that it won't have such pressure in any individual place, and it wouldn't have made risuk evar. But what if your stick wasn't so long and the end of the stick was smack in the middle of the back? Now you're putting too much pressure on one small area of the back. Kaishinan, you need to be concerned about risuk evarim. The isba kitri. What if it was a branch that had branches on it? So when you're hitting the animal, individual branches are coming out and banging into the spine. Then again, chashina. And what if you weren't standing lengthwise, you standing on the side of the animal and you smashed it? So now all of your pressure came down like on one pulya, then chayshinon of Risa. Amar Reb Nachman, Zok Reb Nachman. I believe that there are some, if you look at Rashi, Avsakei, Behafsakaloimar Leroicha Bagav, Chayshinon Lechut HaShedra. And by Chashinan, Rashi says, Shem Nisrasko Evara. So it seems like Rashi says there's two issues over here. So there's an issue of Risak Evarim, but there's also a shaila of damaging the spinal cord. Amar Nachman, Beis HaRechem, the uterus of an animal, Ein Boy Mishum Risuke Evar. There's no problem of Risak Evarim there. Now, what does that mean, the uterus of an animal? When a baby is born, it's got to get through the birth canal, which is a very small space. So anyone going through the birth canal, any baby going through a birth canal, goes through a tremendous trauma because it's being smashed as it's going through the narrow canal. Amalei Rav of Nachman, so he said that wouldn't cause a problem of Risuk Evar. Amalei Rav of Nachman, Tanya the Messiah, I could bring a raya to you, because the Brisa says, Tinuk ben yoy mechad, a tinuk, if a woman has a tinuk that's 1 day old, let's turn on top of the base. Mitama beziva will be mitama beziva, meaning you have a child that's only 1 day old. If ziva comes out of him, it's tummy. The problem is, we know there's a halacha by a zav. If ziva came out of a zav, machmas oinis, because he got banged or squished, that's not called ziva. So if if you hold that there is a concern that a baby that goes through the canal gets damaged, ikri kad mi b'sarai v'lei machmas oinsa. The Torah says, when is a zav tamei? If it's a roar mi b'sarai, if it flows from his basar naturally, not due to some oinus like a risuk evar. So from the fact that the Mishnah says that the first day that a baby is born is ziva, is matamah him, you have a raya that there's no risuk evar. Zakma, you don't have a raya. Maybe the bride that we just quoted that says that the first day a baby is born, his Eva's Matama, maybe they're talking about a baby who didn't go through the birth canal. It was a baby who came out through a C-section. So therefore, you don't have a raya that going through the birth canal would be mirasa. Toshma. Maybe we can bring a different raya. Egel shenoided b'yom. Now, if an egel was born on Yom Tov, the question is it muksa because it wasn't royal achila before Yom Tov. It wasn't huksa lachila. So you have a little egel, a little calf that was born on Yom Tov. The lachid it's not muksa. Now, how could you shecht it on Yom Tov? The problem is, if there's a problem of Rizuk Evarim, you'd have to wait. You couldn't shecht it right away. You have to wait 24 hours to make sure it survives. So therefore, it's not mukhan, and you shouldn't be able to eat on Yom Tov. We're talking about an egel shnod b'Yom Tov through a C-section. Tashma, Vishavin, everybody agrees. Who's everybody? Zokt Rashi. There's a machloikes tanoim in Maseches Beya. What if a bechor was? You have a bechor that was born. It's not royal achila. It's got to be brought as a korban. And on Yom, if it got a mum, so once a bechor gets a mum, now you can shecht it and eat it. So what happens if a bechor is born and on Yom if it had a mum? The halacha is it's going to be noilet. So machloikes if it's noilet. But everybody agrees shem noilet hu umuma imoi. If a bechor was born with a mum, that's shezem amuchin, because the moment it was born, it was already royal to be eaten, and it didn't have to be brought as a korban. How could it be min amuchin? Maybe there was risuk evarim. If you say it came out through a C-section, then it can't be a bechor. We know an animal that came out through a C-section has no kedushas bechora. Yom Rabbi Yochanan, Moed Rabbi Shimon. Lini Kachim, She'ene Kadosh. Rabbi Shimon is moida that even though in Hilchas Nida he holds if a woman has a baby through a C-section, she still has to sit Yemei Tahira, and Yemei Tumah Yemei Tahira Vlad. That's Lagabi sitting Yemei Tumah Yemei Tahira. But Lagabi Kachim, Lagabi whether or not this is considered a bechor that was Paseches Arechem, that definitely it's not. So Dr. Gemara, so what was the case over here that you could use it that day? This animal, as soon as it was born, Rashi says something very interesting. There's a big shiloh what this means. But Rashi says, and let's look at Rashi, it tried standing up and it pushed its legs into the ground to try to stand up. So from Rashi's mashma, it didn't actually stand up, but it tried to stand up. That's good enough, says Rashi. Other Rishonim learned he had the mamish stand up. We're going to see soon that when an animal fell down, and if he lost it, it stands up. You don't need to wait meishleis. You could shecht it right away, but you'd have to be boitik it once you shecht it on the inside. So maybe that was the case over here. It was born regularly. There's a chash of risuk? No. It's speaking where the animal put its feet into the ground and tried to stand up. That would indicate that you would be allowed to shecht it right away. The Omer of Nachman, based on it b'chayim. When they would check an animal in the olden days, now we have big mechanical pens that fasten the animal down. In the olden days, you'd need a whole bunch of people that would literally wrestle the animal to the ground. So they're literally throwing it on the floor. So why isn't that a problem of risuk evar? Based on mitbachayim, ain't by mishum risuk evar. Why? Because about the animal is fighting and doesn't want to go down. That's similar to hefres al gabe karka. Therefore, that could be the case of the bechor. Zok to Gemara weiter. There was once an ox, did nothing. It fell down. I guess they were trying to get it down to shecht it, and it fell. Now, when an ox falls down, that makes a little bit of an earthquake. So what happened was, I scrolled down too much. There's two Here's here. It's either nigi chusei, which means a bang, but there's another nusach that says gini chusei. They heard its groan when it fell down. All Rabbi Yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Marsa, and he held there's no issue with this animal. It's a kosher animal. Shakal mi shufrei shufrei. He ate from the best part of the meat. He showed that this animal is kosher. So they told Rabbi Yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Marsa, how could you know that this is not a problem? He said, the point of when they're wrestling this animal down to the ground, the animal is trying to stay standing and it's fighting. That's a raya that there's no risuk here. If an animal fell down and it stood up, there's no chash of risuk if the animal was able to stand up by itself. But bedika vadeboy. So you have an animal that fell to the ground, we're chashid of risuk. Normally you have to wait 24 hours, but if it stood up, you don't have to wait 24 hours. But once you check it, you still got to bite it inside very carefully to make sure that nothing is broken. But if it actually walks, not just stand up, then you don't need bedika at all. You can check it and you know for sure it's no problem. Rab Chia Barashi, Amar, Akasu, Vakasu, Tricha. Even if it walked, once it was unlawful, you need to be bite. Once you check it. Amar B'Yemir Ba'acha Amarab. What about Pashta Yodolab? What if the animal stretched its hand out to try to stand, even though it didn't actually stand? That would be good enough to check them right away. If it just moved a foot forward, even if it didn't walk, again, that's a right that it's not a risuk ivar. If it just moved and made a movement towards trying to stand up, that's good enough of a raya that there's no risuk ivar. The shaila would be if you still have to be boidikit. I believe that's a little bit of a shaila in the Rishonim. Let's have a look at Rashi. Niner alamed afapisha like pashta yoda or the schaska v'rotzalamid. It would be good, but I assume you would still need bedika. It's only holcha bedika. Okay, about it. So let's have a look at Rashi, like 5 lines up in the skinny lines, because Rashi sort of summarizes the different options. Avo bedika boy. The chut hashedra. Where are you biting if you chayshit for risuk ivar? You check the chut hashedra, and you check for ubishvira sarayv salois. You look to make sure the ribs aren't broken. Uvakiris chulya to make sure one of the vertebrae aren't broken off. If it couldn't stand, afilu bat kanua v'nimtza shleima treifa b'shem achavat nisparchu prakel b'chul yisel. If it didn't move at all, and you didn't wait 24 hours, and you shechted it, even if you're biting it and you find everything good, the animal is still a treif. But if it walked, and if it stood, then if you checked it and you were biting it and it comes out good, then you're allowed to eat. Zok Gemara weiter. Amar Meimar, Mishmeider Avdimi Minardo. Nofula Sha'amru. This is how we said an animal that falls down to treifa. Shricha Bedika Keneged B'nei Ma'ayim. You have to also check the B'nei Ma'ayim. Zok Rashi, Keneged B'nei Ma'ayim, Shema Nikra Roiv HaChitzayna or Nikvadakim. Either maybe Roiv of the Keres HaChitzayna was torn, or Nikvadakim. That's also what you have to check for, in addition to the rib cage, the spinal cord, and the spine. Zok to Gemara weiter. You have to check the whole inside the rib cage. You got to check it all very, very carefully. Rashi says, it's like Rashi told us earlier. What about simonimah? If an animal fell, do you have to check to make sure the simonim weren't ripped out? No. Simonim koshenin eitzal nefil. They're very secure, and even if the animal falls down, we don't need to check the simonim to make sure that they were not uprooted, because that's not what happens usually. What about an oif? Now, clearly, an oif suffering a much smaller, softer bang would also cause more damage because of the size of an oif. It's so small. So, what happens to oif? Now, I have a question for you. Did anybody here ever go water skiing? If you went water skiing and you fall down, did you ever jump into a pool and make a belly flop? When you jump into a water and you flying into it, it feels like you're jumping into a concrete wall. The surface of the water is ganz hard. So if an oif got thrown out, you didn't land, the oif fell out of the air, plopped in the water. How do you know if it's considered a risuk ivar? Even shot malay kamasa, if it swims the distance of its length, so let's say the bird is 6 inches long. If it swims 6 inches, dial. That only works if it's swimming upstream. So you clearly see his own koyach is moving him. But if the bird swims 6 inches downstream, if he's just going with the current, you don't see that he propelled himself. And if it's water that's not flowing, if it's still water, less lava, it doesn't matter. The bird moves 6 inches, we can assume it's not going to be a Vishada Tziva, what if he's swimming with the current, but there's logs in the water and he's moving faster than the logs? Vikadme. So Haikadme, you know clearly that's his own propulsion, because if he was just going with the current, he would stay in line with the logs. Lima Matiach. What if someone set up a beged that was stretched really tight between poles and a bird flew into it and hit it? That's a very hard surface. We would be cautious that the animal is a traitor. The loimatiach, what if it was a loose beged, it wasn't tightly stretched? Then like chashinon, because it's not hitting such a hard surface. What if the beged that's stretched is folded over? And when it's folded over, you can't pull it so taut. Therefore, like chashinon, we're not worried if the bird hit it, that it became a merusak evar. What about isla? What if it was a net? Now, a net has strings, bouncy strings, but there's knots in it. The knots are very hard. So isla or mikra vikitri, if the knots are close together, Shina, we're concerned that the bird hit a knot. But loy mikra vikitri, if the knots are very far apart, then we won't be worried that the bird hit a knot. We'll say it just hit the flexible string. If it's loy mikra vikitri, loy chashi. What about kisna, the ovid betuni? Kisna is flax, and it's bundled into a bundle, and the bundle is a very hard bundle. Rajas pishtan the asli chavilas. It hit a bundle of ksainas. So the halach is chashinon, that's very hard. But the high gisa, loy chashin. What does it mean, the high gisa? Very, very simple. Imagine you're looking at this cylinder. I have a plastic cup. I hope you can see it. It's a cylinder. If the bird hits smack on the top of the cylinder, that's a very hard place in the bundle of ksainas. The bird's going to be a treifa. But if it hits the side, so it bounces off, it's not hitting it head on, that would not be choshed to have rusuk evar. So the high gitzu like chashin. Asuraisa chashina. Asuraisa zokt Rashi is chavila shalkan. Bundles of reeds. That's very hard. But what about the way they would process ksainas, the flax, is there's soft fibers in there, but there's hard wood in there as well. So they would crush it, and then they would comb it to separate the soft fibers from the hard wooden pieces. So kisna the dye vinofits, if you have ksainas that you already crushed and combed out, so it's pure soft ksainas, loy chashinan, there we're not worried that of risuk ivar. But daik will enough. What if it's crushed, but you didn't separate the hard wooden pieces from the soft fibers? Chayshinon, they're choshet. The ovid bizri, what if it's ovid bizri, meaning it's twisted into a roll? Bizri literally means knots, but the way they would take these the soft fibers, the way they would bundle them is they would twist them, and that would make them quite tight and hard. Even it can make hitchery chashinon, since it has knots, which most people learn, meaning the fact that they're twisted together. Chashinon, it's very hard. Dikata chashinon, The katkada loichashi. Zok Rashi, the kato is the small pieces of the pishtim. When they separate them, the thicker, harder pieces, if they're in a pile and the bird hits it, you're chayit to rizuk. But doctors saw the very fine fibers, loy chayshina, you're not chayit. Navra chayshinon, timchasa loy chayshin. Navra Rashi is it's some type of netting that grows naturally around palm trees. The article calls it palm bast, which is the inside bark. But whatever it is, in its rough form, it's very hard. But when it's cut into thin strips, then it becomes soft. So navra chashinon, tim chazal, once it's in thin strips, it's more bouncy, like chashin. Hitma, ash, that nehila, that was sifted, so it's very dense. Chashinon, it's hard. Loy nehila, if it wasn't sifted, it's loose ash, that's almost like a cushion. Loy chashin. Let's go on to Nun Beis Amid Aleph, because there's a whole, this list continues. If it's in soft, fine sand, like chashina. If it's thick, hard earth, chashina. Avak derachim, if it's dirt from the roads, I guess that's compressed, chashina. Tivna, if it's teven, which is straw. Rashi says it's the straw of chitna and tzarim, the stalks of chitna and tzarim. The ovid bizaga chashina. If they're bundled again, it becomes a hard surface, and you're chayshid. Loy bizaga, which is loose stalks, it acts like almost a cushion. Loy chayshid. Chiti v'chol deminayu chayshina. Wheat kernels and anything similar, which are very hard, chayshina. Sa'ari, barley kernels, which are softer, chol deminayu, and other kernels similar to barley, chayshina. Every type of legumes, small beans, because they're slippery and they're like literally jumping into balls that they have in these entertainment centers for children. Levarmin rubia, except for a plant called rubia. I think it's called fennec something. I don't even know what it is. And the Ashkol teaches what it is. I can look it up.
Fenugreek.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but whatever it is, that's hard. It's a legume and it's hard, so therefore, kashidu. Kimchi ain't boy mishum rusik evar. Kimchi are round beans. Rashi is pishless, which the article touch as peas. Peas are mamish like balls that the kids jump into in entertainment center. When you fall into them, you don't bang yourself on any hard surfaces because you're always bouncing in between the balls. Machenkin beblach. Chavtzi, which are chickpeas, yesh because they're not perfectly round. They have points, they have flat parts, so it's possible the bird will hit it head on. Klal of the Milsa, the general rule is, call me the mishrik, anything that slips off each other like balls, they don't stay together, they fall apart when you jump into them, ain't by mishum they act as a cushion. But like mishrik, if they don't slide over each other, they stay in one position because of their shape, yesh by mishum double. What if you had a glue trap? Did anybody use a glue trap for mice? So they used to have glue traps for birds. Imagine a bird lands on a glue trap. Ravashi says it's mutter. Now just landing on the glue trap isn't the problem. The problem is if it's trying to fly away and then it fell down. That's what we're discussing here. So Ravashi Shari Amemer also. Bechad Gapa, if only one wing was trapped in the glue trap, everybody else, it's mutter. I can't fly good in economy, but it won't hit the ground hard. Vivaldi has one free wing; it'll able to soften its landing. Keep leading. The Amachloikis is betray Gapi. If both of its wings are stuck there, the animal, the bird, won't be able to soften its fall. How is it going to protect itself? Its wings are disabled. Listen, the wings are stuck on the glue trap, and it still has the root of the wings. It's still something that the bird can do to soften its blow. Betregapi, both wings are trapped. Everybody agrees that it's a treva. He plead the machlokes is the chad gapa of only one wing is stuck in the glue trap. Man the shari amalach after the parach the chad gapa, it could fly a little bit with one wing. Man the osar keeping the bahai loy matzi parach, bahai nami loy matzi parach. Since it can't fly with one wing, it can't fly with another wing. Betregapi osar chad gapa shari. If both wings are disabled, the animals also we say it fell and had a crash landing, but if only one fell and crashed, that would not be a problem. Now Rashi has a very interesting psak of Allah Lamaisa that's kedai to learn inside. So let's look at Rashi. Betray nami aser elam kain amad malach, unless you see afterwards the animal, the bird was able to walk away after it fell. Cause of ilchus gedolos. Call life in the boy bedika. All of these cases that need bedika. Where we said the miskashim bedika in the cases where it stood up, so you can be boydek it. That was only in the olden days. Where they knew how to be boydek. We don't know exactly how to check, and therefore and therefore we have to be machmer. Zokt Rashi chas v'sholem. The ein loy the dain elamash ein of runners. A dain can paskin loy the for state. And you could be signed on the dayan and today when they're boydek. Dichsiv bela shoyvet asher yeh b'yom ha'mein yivtach b'doyer k'shmul b'doyer. Aval hu yizar yafa avada the Talmud Chacham should be very careful. Ulahavi lefan of kol hatabachim. When the Rav is making these assessments, he should gather in all the butchers of the cities, the chala b'kim b'davar, and anybody who's a baki in these things, so that he can get their mitzias clear, so that he will come to the right decision. Teichin in the mountain, niyamte sheyavai mechshura. Means to pull out the emes from the beam, means to make sure they get it right. So Rashi holds that yes, you can be budgeted for these things nowadays, and we can be soymech on expert opinions. If the Rav does his research properly, we can be soymech. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we're zoicha to finish. Tafnun Aleph, Ana Hashem, Moshiach, we bait by the Rebbeinu Shalom. He should help us finish the next half tomorrow. B'ez Hashem, Tafnun Beis.
Amen.
Okay, good to
What was the start? I understand the Matthias with the bird, with the wings.
Its wings
landed now on
the and it tried to fly.
And now what?
It fell out of the sky and it fell on the ground. So now the question is: does this bird have risuk evar? You have to wait 24 hours before you can check.
Where it's right now stuck or not stuck?
It doesn't really matter if it's stuck right now or not. What matters is it was stuck when it fell down.
But so where did the risuk come from? The risuk?
The fact that it fell out of the sky because its wings were stuck.
So what's the difference between one wing and two wings?
Because the question is, if it has one wing free, would it be able to soften its blow when it falls down?
Mm-hmm. I hear. Okay.
So you got to be an expert in birds' flight and stuff like that to understand exactly how this works.
Right. Okay.
So I actually feel more like the halachas kedolos, but then again, when Rashi said that a Rav could paskin, he didn't mean me. He meant someone who's knowledgeable.
So you mean it doesn't? In other words, it doesn't change. The Messias doesn't change.
It seems like the Messias doesn't change. The question really is how to make that assessment.
Right.
So basically, all the halachas where we said, if we said it's mamash a treifa, there's nothing to check. But there's cases where we said that if it can stand up, even though it can't move, or if it sticks its feet in the ground, there you should check it right away, but you have to be by. The question is, can we rely on our bedika?
Well, if you can see if it's broken, it's not broken.
To you and me, it sounds like that. You see if the ribs are broken, you see if they could be in a chanami. But vice the choice, the Hag held that there were zaken that are more subtle that we wouldn't notice.
Wouldn't be able to, huh? I hear. Okay.
Okay, shkoyach. If you can come up with
tomorrow,
a reason,
9 o'clock?
Yeah, Be'ez Hashem. If you can come up with a reason why Rabbi Avira did not want to come to Abaye, we have to come up with a reason. I'll see if I can look up something here. Okay, shkoyach.
Okay, cool.
Good luck.